everybody. Patricia Pinky here, the author of the book, Stop Throwing Cash in the Trash. I bet you're wondering why I'm dressed up like this. Well, our show today is going to be talking about the values found in fabulous vintage rockabilly fashions from the 1950s. So my favorite rockabilly fashion lady was Lucille Ball. So here I am. Do I look like Lucille Ball from the I Love Lucy show? Hope so. Now, where do you find vintage clothes? Okay, boxes thrown in the basement, or the closet, the end of the closets, boxes in the attics, sometimes even in sheds. One time I found a pair of 1968 Levi's vintage blue jeans in a shed that had been burned down. We were doing a clean out, and I took the pair, put them on eBay, and sold them for $1,400. That's right, $1,400 for a 1968 pair of Levi's blue jeans. Believe it or not, today's generation, Generation X, Generation Z, and the millennials love collecting vintage 50s, 60s, mid-century clothing. And it's one of the first things when somebody's cleaning out their house or trying to get organized, the vintage clothes go in the trash, or they go to the thrift store. Sometimes the thrift stores save them, and sometimes they don't. Considering that a dress such as this one here, now this one was a handmade pink chiffon, layered full swing skirt dress. Something like this would sell for $150 online. And you know, the thing about it is the individuality of vintage clothes. Nobody else is going to have the same outfits you have. Another thing is that I find that when you wear something like this, like maybe not like this, but say for instance I wore a shirt in this type of fabric with a pair of blue jeans, somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I really like that." And we strike up a conversation. You make lots of friends that way. The buttons, the snaps, the zippers, the double stitching on everything, wider hems so you can adjust clothing as needed. Nowadays, they just fall apart. So that's another reason why vintage clothing is so popular. Vintage clothing is quite intriguing. You never know what kind of story comes behind each piece. Who wore that outfit? What event did they go to? I mean, really, these are fascinating pieces of artistry. Owning and wearing vintage clothing is a way of keeping the designers and manufacturers' artistry alive, something you just can't find wearing modern clothing today. Here's a short clip on YouTube I discovered that showed a runway show with gals today wearing 50s fashions. It's really quite the rage.
Well, down Louisiana in the bright sunshine, they do a little boogie woogie all the time. They do the Haddock-Car boogie. The Haddock-Car boogie. They do the Haddock-Car boogie, makes me boogie woogie all the time. Well, if your radiator leaks and you wanna stand still, I give a Haddock-Car and watch a boogie up a hill. I do the Haddock-Car boogie. The Haddock-Car boogie. They do the Haddock-Car boogie, makes me boogie woogie all the time. All right, Tom.
The glamour of those curvy bombshell dresses worn by Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Sophia Loren, and those rockin', zany, swingin' dresses such as those worn by our favorite celebrity, Lucille Ball, also known as Lucie Arnaz. Trending today are the cool cat, beatnik, rockabilly garments worn by Desi Arnaz and Lucy on the I Love Lucy show, and the denim Levi blue jeans worn by James Dean, Elvis Presley, and even Steve McQueen. Did you know Vintage Levi denim jeans and jackets can sell for in the thousands of dollars. So, I have a pair of Levi blue jeans here, and I just happened to find these at a local thrift store. This pair I figured out from the things that I discovered online, the identification tips. I figured out these blue jeans to be from the late 1980s. Well, I only paid $5 for them. But guess what? I just discovered that they're actually worth $80. I mean, that's what they're selling for, $80. One of the first things you might want to note when you find a pair of vintage Levi or Levi blue jeans is to look at the red tab. Right away, if the red tab that says Levi's has a big E, then you know you have a pair that's older than 1971. That's a good start. Okay, so then we have what they call the selvage. When they created these blue jeans or stitched them together on the outside leg, this is the selvage. Well, let's see if I can bring it in a little closer here. Okay, this has got a white serged selvage, and that's how I was able to discover they were just later 1980s blue jeans. Now, here is a photo showing a selvage from the 1950s. The other things that you would notice is the care label. On this pair of blue jeans here, there is a care label, so that dates this pair, you know, again, after 1971. Now, because it has the red, what they call batwing label, again, that was another tip to discover it was made in the late 1980s, because later after that it was changed to black and white. During the mid-century years, 1960 to 1963, every garment guaranteed slogan was removed from the patch. And the V-stitch, as you see here, is present on post-1970s Levi's. Another way to identify the age of a pair of Levi's blue jeans is by looking at the back pocket, where you'll find what they call an arcuette stitch, which will look like a little diamond. And in here, where you see the bat wing pattern on the pocket, there's a little area where they meet in the middle, where it's shaped like a diamond. So that's where they called it the diamond arcuette. So the presence, with or without that, determines their age also. Do you even have this arcuette stitch pattern? If not, your 501s were produced between 1942 and 1947. During World War II, regulations were made on production nationwide in order to ration certain materials like thread and metal. Levi's wanted to keep their signature arcuette during the World War II years, so instead they painted the arcuette on with orange paint, which is probably worn off by now, so it'll just not be that design. So that ends our little tutorial on talking about how to date vintage Levi's blue jeans. Next thing we're going to talk about is rockabilly shirts, and one of the more popular men's rockabilly shirts and jacket would be Ricky jackets. Here's a photo of what they call a Ricky jacket. I don't know why they called it a Ricky jacket, because he only wore it one time on the I Love Lucy show. In terms of design, basic features were shoulder pads, lined, button latch sleeves, 2 pockets, either flap, patch, or regular, a zipper front, and a sharp collar. Over time, there were slight variations in some designs, like the collar. The 1940s had the largest, while they became shorter until the 1960s. So we're always going to be looking for a larger collar. They pretty much shared the design with the basic single-breasted leather jacket, but cut from a softer, lightweight fabric such as gabardine. Here we have a couple of 1950s cool cat sweater type jackets. This one was Field and Stream. And by looking at the buttonholes being horizontal in the tag, definitely 1950s. Has a nice little pocket here. And this one here looks to be like a gabardine type of fabric. It says Lakeland, which is a popular vintage brand. And again, by looking at the stitching on the tag and the fabric, I would say 1950s for sure. Actually, I can see Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley or Johnny Cash wearing these as they were preparing to record in the studios those famous, wonderful songs that we all remember and love so much. Okay, next we're going to talk about these wonderful full swing dresses that Lucille Ball loved so much. Literally thousands of happy, peppy people love wearing these bright and cheerful print day dresses. Now here's a couple of photos showing a dress from the movie she made with Desi Arnaz, 1953, called A Long, Long Trailer. Here's a couple of beautiful dresses I found for sale on Etsy from the 1950s. This beautiful full circle dress is for sale for $399. This beautiful pretty in pink dress is for sale for $145. You would definitely be the belle of the ball with that. Did you know one of Lucille Ball's favorite quotes was, "The secret of staying young is to live honestly, eat slowly, and lie about your age." I have here an Emma Daum, looks like a beautiful prom dress, pretty in pink again, soft velveteen. There's your label, Emma Daum. Emma Daum of California. Okay, so it's in pretty good condition. I would say that's worth about $200. This is a picture of a Malcolm Starr maxi gown. Label and in good condition, $225. There's so many fun events revolved around the 50s. I mean, people love to get their hot rod, and they head on over to events like Viva Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas is an event that happens every April, and of course Las Vegas, where it was made famous by Elvis Presley and Anne Margaret in their movie Viva Las Vegas. Marilyn Monroe was definitely considered the queen of all celebrity divas. She was beautiful and wore fashionable hourglass and figure-fluttering dresses. Her favorite types of dresses featured low-cut, seductive necklines, strapless and halter-top dresses, and belted waistlines to show her curves. Here's a photo of Marilyn wearing blue jeans in the movie The River of No Return with Robert Mitchum. We just watched that the other night. Really good movie. The 1962 Happy Birthday, Mr. President crystal embellished gown sold in 1999 for $1.26 million to an American stock investor, Martin Zwig. Zwig, careful of his investment, stored the dress in a special climate-controlled vitrine. Approximate profit made for storing the dress for 17 years was $3.5 million. Not a bad investment at all. Did you know the snug dress that Marilyn Monroe wore? She literally had to be sewn into it. There were no zippers, buttons, or snaps. The dress had over 2,500 crystal rhinestones on the top of the fabric and under, and numerous sequins. Original cost of the gown was $12,000. Here's a quick YouTube video with Marilyn Monroe singing Happy Birthday to John F. Kennedy at his birthday in 1962.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
Here's a couple of photos showing Marilyn Monroe's 7-year itch Subway flared halter top dress, which sold for $4.6 million actually with fees, $5.6 million, in June of 2011. The dress, which was previously owned by actress Debbie Reynolds, who won it at a Hollywood studio auction. Thanks to vintage clothes collectors such as celebrity Debbie Reynolds, who bought as many Hollywood props and costumes as possible during her lifetime, those iconic and nostalgic garments may have been lost forever. Because Debbie had an immense love for Hollywood memorabilia, she bought over 5,000 vintage Hollywood film costumes, props, cameras, iPhoneria, and cars over a 35-year period. She did make over $35 million reselling her vintage pieces. Being Elvis Presley was quite the entertainer. He had some awesome, exquisite jumpsuits created just for his stage shows. From 1960s to 1970s, some of these outfits sell in the thousands of dollars. Here is Elvis Presley's peacock jumpsuit, which sold for over $300,000 at auction in August of 2008. The inspiration for his trademark jumpsuits and coif look came from the comic book hero called Captain Marvel Jr., whose adventures he enjoyed as a child. Some of Elvis's bejeweled jumpsuits weigh more than 28 pounds. Here is a photo of Elvis wearing his blue armadillo suit, which was created by Bill Belew, the Hollywood designer behind all of Elvis's elaborate stage costumes and his personal wardrobe. It sold for $250,000 in 2017 to an Elvis collector, the third highest price ever paid for an Elvis jumpsuit at auction. Elvis even commissioned his stage electrician to design a version of his white jumpsuit that would shoot laser beams into the audience. Unfortunately, he passed away, ending the eccentric design idea. So here are some more tips on how to date some of those vintage clothing. Clothing manufacturers were not required to include garment care instructions on an interior tag until 1971. So as I told you earlier, when you're analyzing a piece of clothing made by a brand, not home sewn, look for the care tag. If you see the brand tag but are missing the care label, you can determine that the garment was made before 1971, and it's definitely vintage. When you find on the neck label the words Made in USA or the American flag on the front, it's basically from the 1980s or earlier. Where is it made? Made in Japan, 1960s or earlier. Korea, 1970s to 1990s. Taiwan, 1980s. Now that's very important for Taiwan because Tommy Hilfiger clothes are very trending and popular. Also, the neck labels, again, if they're sewn on the right and the left only, and all around, hand-stitched or machine-stitched, you can date it about 1950s or earlier. Okay, the union labels. Change in 1963 to the label design emphasizing the words Union Made. During the years 1974, 1995, the colors of the label changed to red, white, and blue instead of the blue and the white. The ILGWU remained active until 1995. At that time, they merged with another union, UNITE. For more information about labels, tags, I found a very good site online called vintagefashionguide.org. That's been a great help to me. Okay, now we're going to talk about Aloha and Hawaiian shirts, which are very collectible today, selling for hundreds, sometimes even over $1,000. Some of the most popular names I'd like to mention are Shehans, King Kamehameha, Diamond Head, Olani, Kahala, Champion, and Royal Hawaiian. Here I have a picture of a short, it's called a Tiki novelty print from the 1960s, and the selling price on Etsy for that is $139. This Aloha shirt, which is blue, $75. Then we have one that is actually called Cisco Bright Novelty Print, Aloha shirt. It's actually silk, selling price $500. Here you see some labels that I posted so you can kind of get an idea of what they look like on the neck tag. The earliest and best vintage Hawaiian shirts will have carved wood, coconut shell, metal, or shell buttons. Later, plastic buttons came into use. Since these were kept as souvenirs, Hawaiian shirts can pretty much be found in the most unlikely of places, in a shed, in a chest, or boxes in the basement, or in cedar closets in the basement as well. Watch for shirts with horizontal buttonholes, made popular with Alfred Sheehan shirts. Also watch for long and wide collar tips. The hem is even across the bottom. There won't be a shirt tail. Neck labels are attached around the edges or down the right and the left side, and no care instructions. Another popular print today, besides tropical and Hawaiian, is the atomic prints. I have here a shirt that has a geometric pattern, and of course you see the neck label, no care instructions, 1950s, and the horizontal buttonholes. So this would be probably selling for $75. Here I have a tropical print pair of women's pants gathered at the waist with a drawstring. It does have care instructions on it, but it says made in USA, so probably 1970s. I would date these out. Kind of cute with the palm trees on them. And here's another atomic print that you might find with a men's shirt. Again, very popular. The most popular early Sheehan prints riffed on ancient Asian imagery. There were prints featuring pines and plum trees, which represented a successful life, as well as tiger prints, roaring tiger they were called, which symbolized power. Watch out for reproductions, though, made later on. It's very important that you do your research online. This particular yellow tiger roar silk shirt sold for $1,000. And here we have a vintage tiger roar Asian pattern Toyo Japan shirt that sold for $180. Keep in mind that not all vintage clothes are valuable. Depends on their prints, the type of clothing they are, the fabric used, and if they're in good condition. Things to keep in mind are like old school. That's very popular, very trending right now. That would be 60s, 70s, and 80s champion sweatshirts or concert t-shirts. Let's see here. Retro shirts, as we just talked before. This is a picture of a 1950s champion man's shirt, selling price on Etsy $135. Here's a rare 1960s BMW dead stock, meaning you can't find it anymore. They don't produce them anymore. Race car or racing t-shirt. Selling price on Etsy $89. We have here a vintage 1930s, 1940s champion knitwear black wool circle knit athletic varsity sweater. Selling price on Etsy $245. I leave you now with a quote from one of Hollywood's iconic stars, Marilyn Monroe. Your clothes should be tight enough to show you're a woman, but loose enough to show you're a lady. Well, that concludes our show today. So till next time, happy swingin' treasure hunting.
Yeah.